Good evening. Thanks everyone for coming. If we can start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, nation, God, liberty. All right. Do I need a motion to adjourn exec and enter?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I am going to turn it over to Dr. Warden.
Yes, so we're lucky enough to start the night out with a tenure recommendation. So I believe we have Mr. Costello going to come up. Oh, there he is. I couldn't see you. And Mr. Roddy is going to also come up, and Nicole is also going to come up. I think she has balloons. That must be the. So I'll just quickly, I'm sure they're going to reiterate a lot of these words, but I'm lucky enough to, I don't think she has a choice, but she's one of the favorite classrooms I like to visit. And sometimes I do disturb your lessons, so I apologize to begin with. But when you go in there, you truly see a love and a dedication to your students every single day. And I absolutely appreciate everything that you do. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Costello to continue.
We're on. That's exactly what I was going to say. Actually, we had Ms. Fiore here as a long-term sub, and and she did such a great job that when the opportunity came open in the flex class, I could not think of any other person more perfect for that role. Not only is she, I think, the kindest human being I think I've ever met, but she makes every single one of the kids in that classroom just feel special and seen and important, and she gets to know them and really pushes for them to have great experiences. They went to see the Nutcracker, and I had a great time, and she is continuing to push them out of their comfort zone and supporting them all the way through it. And we're very fortunate to have her, and she's a great member of our team. So, congratulations.
Just to echo some of those comments, when I think of Ms. Fiore, I think of the word joy. She exudes joy wherever she goes. When you go to her classroom, it is a joyful place. To say she is kind and caring would be a gross understatement, because she does everything within her power every given day for her students. And not just her class, but she's a presence throughout the building. She was a class advisor last year, did a marvelous job. She's involved with the Interact Club. So she, simply put, she makes our school a better place every day for our students. And on top of just the care that she gives our students, as a practitioner, her knowledge of pedagogy is really something special. We talk about differentiating instruction a lot, meeting the needs of different students. She has a group of students that have such a wide, diverse group of needs, and she reaches everyone where they are every day. Going into her room, she's here, she's there, but the whole time she knows everything that's going on. She's speaking with kindness. They are learning so much, and she elevates, the practice of everyone around her, including myself. So congratulations, so well deserved.
I think we have to vote first. So, no, I'm serious. So, do I have a motion?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good.
Yay.
All right. Congratulations. Do you want to continue on with recognitions?
So we're going to go to a recognition tonight. I have Dr. Boyd, if he would like to come up, and as well as a senior, Brock, if he would also like to come up. During this time, we like to highlight our rater profile, and we like to talk about students that exemplify our rater profile, but also, most importantly, don't do the things they do to actually seek this recognition. So that's one of the most important things, that there's students that are amazing, compassionate, and empathetic people that we have, and we're very lucky in the future that we have students like you that are joining our future. So Dr. Boyd?
Let me give you a little detail. Brock reached out to Dr. Hayes and I over a year and a half ago, summer of 2023. He was hoping to find a way to help out Mill Road and support our students. And after hearing that a growing number of the children here at Mill Road qualify for free lunch and don't always have snack, he quickly wrote up a plan to provide additional snacks available for any students any day that need it. Took a huge chunk, most of his summer earnings last year to purchase these snacks and then continue to replenish them for the next year and a half. So for that time, without any recognition, Brock has provided a variety of snacks for our students. Last year, he came to us and asked a couple times what their favorites were to even get some feedback, and made every attempt to provide them with a great blend of healthy, fun choices. In a world where people tend to talk about issues or complain about issues and never act on them, Brock chose to act. Your selfless actions, Brock, have had a significant positive impact on the students at Mill Road. They love coming down and checking out what snacks are available in the bin. Over 50 students in that time, some are regular visitors, come back down to the office, usually with a friend or two. After all, snack, at the elementary school especially, is a social event. And having a fun snack can make you a big hit in class. Tonight, we want to recognize Brock on his wonderful contribution to our Mill Road School community. There was a quote I read, a Greek proverb that goes something like, "A society grows great when the elders plant trees for whose shade they shall never sit." And I think about how selfless and actionable his moves have been for the last year and a half. He's never seen one student come down and smile on their face for having snack that day, but his impact has been huge. I am really proud of this effort, and like I said, not looking for recognition, quietly goes about his business. Mr. Roddy told me the same thing this morning. It's the kind of contribution and actions that make our school community great and our society great. And I met Brock years ago when he was really, really little, but I had the great pleasure of having his grandfather here for Veterans Day and Flag Day every year, someone who always gave back. And his grandfather passed away about a year ago this fall, but I know that he would be really proud of you. So congratulations, and we want to recognize you for your efforts. Brock.
Oh, Brock, you have to come up here.
My neighbor. Black Friday, everything.
And then I think we're going to move our other recognition to the January meeting, right? Okay.
All right, that brings us to student BOE.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. I'm going to start with class of 2025. So we're fundraising for prom, which is at Diamond Mills on June 14th. For student council, we're currently in the middle of our annual food drive, which is going very well. We've made a lot of drop-offs at the community center. We've raised, I think we have like over 1,000 cans, which is really good. Music, they had a concert on Tuesday, which went really well. It was really cool. Sports, boys swim is doing great. They just won their meet. Good job, Brock. Wrestling is also doing well, and winter track has their first meet tomorrow. Mentor Club is selling chocolate and planning a school-wide event for December 17th. And robotics just did fantastic at their first competition this past Saturday. And the art district show is going to be like May 20th, 5 to 7 p.m. So super excited for that.
Excellent. And the winter ball?
Oh, yeah. The winter ball went great. I heard a lot of feedback. There was over 100 kids there, and they said it was a lot of fun. The music was great, and the weather was actually pretty good too. So.
I heard wonderful things about it.
Yeah.
So, great. Any questions? All right. What does that bring us to? Okay. Presentations, future-focused instruction, assessment.
So we're going to have Dr. Summers and Mr. Costello are going to come up, and I think there's a lot of other teachers here that are going to come up and support this too. Okay. Sorry. So I know the board asked over the summer about different topics they'd like to hear about during the course of the year. So we're going to touch upon some different instructional and assessments practices that we've been doing in the district as well as DEI.
Okay, good evening. So this is a team event, and it is always daily a team event for us when we are working with our students on our academic programming. So we visit our mission and vision. It's what guides us, and we're welcoming a diverse community of learners committed to personal growth and caring for others. And our vision is that we do seek to empower each individual to embrace today and navigate the possibilities of tomorrow. Our academic goals, this is something as a strategic planning team with input from teacher leaders, teachers, administrators that we have set forward. This is our next set of goals. We provide a relevant, rigorous, and student-centered curriculum, reflects diversity, prepares students for the global community. We use instructional practices that are responsive, encourage communication, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration, and we will use technology in a meaningful and future-focused manner to enhance student learning. And as you listen to us and see what we have to offer, we are in direct alignment with these goals.
So part of the work that we're doing also is our equity work, and we have an equity committee met last week actually to start the work up again. And it's based on one of our district goals for equity, diversity, and inclusivity. And the district will foster an equitable, inclusive environment that embraces diversity, challenges inequities, and ensures all students have appropriate access to high quality educational opportunities. So our lens is this lens, based on the work that we did as a wider district. And so what we did at our first meeting is we talked about establishing a mission, vision, and purpose. And so we were broken off into smaller teams who are working on some ideas around what would be an appropriate mission, vision, and purpose as we focus on, and have already started discussions on our areas of growth that we'd like to see, our educational programming and doing a deep dive into that, and looking at some of the experiences we've added and where we want to do some other work for inclusivity and equity there, and how everything aligns to our rater profile going back to the previous slide, which is our goal.
So in technology, you've heard Donna Seelbach report out as Director of Technology that we have done the one-to-one MacBook initiative for the grades 6 through 12. This was expanded this year to include all students in grade 5. So even though they don't take the devices home, they are utilized throughout the classroom and for instructional activities. And we are always looking at new applications, software programs, so that our faculty have what's current and students can engage in that for their teaching and learning. So there are some of the examples of what we've just recently added. We are always focused on professional development when we add different apps and different software programs. So that is part of our fabric, and just like Jack said, equity is part of our fabric. Our goals are something that we look at, that we support, that it is part of what we do daily.
So, Dr. Summers, before you move on, I do want to highlight some of the programs that are Conmigo. I know that Mr. Roddy did a PD on this too recently. Yes. It is an AI feature, so it's an artificial intelligence feature that the teachers can use to help with lesson planning. So as we talk about the implementation of AI into schools, we're also talking how it creates efficiencies for lesson planning, creating rubrics, in ways also that students can access in a way that is also important for us. So I just wanted to highlight that's one of the format, but there are a couple other ones that teachers are now using.
Good evening. I'm Christine Griffin, the English Department Chair. I was going to speak with you this evening. Hi, Austin. I was going to speak with you this evening about the IB for All initiative, which is up and running, and I think in a very successful direction. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about it. This year we decided to start the students with the Fairy Tales of Charles Perrault, which counts as a work in translation, but actually gave us the opportunity to start all the students with texts they were familiar with, but doing a really deep dive into those texts in order to analyze them, identify archetypes and symbolism. So we felt like it would be a really great way to kind of give them a comfortable start into the IB curriculum, and they really seem to enjoy it. We then, oh my gosh, Mrs. Griffin needs glasses, I think. We then followed up with a study of The Handmaid's Tale, which I believe everyone should read, and they really enjoyed it. Right, Danielle? Yep, shaking her head. And right now they're writing their very own dystopian genre based upon a social issue that could parlay into something kind of scary. So they were excited about doing that. We also just started together a study of a play called The Visit by Friedrich Dürrenmatt, and one of the things I love about it is that it's got so many parts that every student in the room has to read, which they were not as fond of, but it actually is going really, really well, and they're really enjoying it and laughing a lot, and it's really fostering our sense of community, so I love it. And interestingly enough, Mr. Roddy made a connection with someone from the IB company, I can't think of the word, the IB program at a conference, and we had a meeting with Mr. Roddy and Ms. Lynch and these representatives, and they sent our name up to The Hague, and two women from The Hague contacted Diana and I wanted to talk about how we managed to institute a program of literature for all and IB for all using the literature program instead of the language and literature program, which is what a lot of other schools do, because the literature program is more rigorous. So they were very impressed with our efforts, and they wanted to talk to us and see how it was going, and they were really very encouraging and very impressed. So we're hoping to maintain that connection.
Thank you. So just briefly to go over some data, I mean, I have to tell you, from someone that's not in the classroom actively teaching this, being able to look in, our English department is just hitting it out of the park with this initiative. Under Ms. Griffin's leadership, it's not a common thing for someone to be able to say every student in a school is an IB student. That's pretty incredible when you think about it. But the question is, well, how's it going? Like, is it working? Are the kids learning? Or how are they doing? Well, I'm so happy to report that after the first marking period, we did a data analysis. We looked at student achievement this year compared to last year, the year before. 2 years ago, at this point, there were 8 students that were failing English after 10 weeks. And that includes the students in IB English, Honors English, and Regents. And a lot of those failures were in Regents English. This year, all our students are in IB English. We have 7 students that aren't passing right now, and we have 10 more students on the rolls in that cohort. So with more students in this grade, we have a better pass rate under IB than we did 2 years ago. So it's pretty incredible. Even if you look at the course average compared to 2 years ago, it was 84 2 years ago, and it's 84 now for all 11th graders. So, it's really exciting because we're seeing this growth, and what we're seeing as well, and the teachers can speak to this in a lot more detail, maybe at a future meeting, but the students themselves that maybe were historically in those Regents classes, they're kind of coming alive and participating more, and everyone in that class belongs, and it's so apparent to everyone. So we're very excited. And we'll continue to look at data, but this is, that first few weeks, that first few months is where really, students see, oh, this is a little different, but they've risen to the occasion. So we're just so proud of our students and our faculty as well.
Great.
So going into the math department, and just to take a step back, we're talking about a lot of really exciting things tonight. This truly is the tip of the iceberg. If you go into any of the schools in this district, any classroom, there are so many things that we could talk about and just glow about. So we're just doing this, some highlights, but this is, just, as I said, the tip of the iceberg. So a few things in our math department that are really exciting. We've had AP Computer Science for a few years now. Computer science is, for so many reasons, such a critical skill, and we're hoping that next next year we'll add a second computer science class, AP Computer Science Principles. So that's continuing to expand. Our teachers in the high school and also the middle school have been using building thinking classrooms for the last few years, and that's expanding. That's a style of instruction where, you know, when you think of old school math class, sitting in rows, doing worksheets, copying problems off the board, the students are up. They're standing, working in randomized groups, writing on dry erase boards, looking at each other work, learning from each other. It's engaging, it's exciting. They're doing a great job with that. And our college statistics class, which is through Marist, I believe, has recently been realigned to include social justice issues, and the students are actually analyzing real-world economic data in that class. So not just numbers on a sheet, but like how do these numbers impact the real world? In science, one thing I want to highlight, Ms. Whitaker's class did a road salt study where they worked in groups and analyzed the best things that you can put on the ground to break up ice and keep it safe. So very real world, again, not just reading a textbook, but really doing like an actual analysis. I was going to bring in different samples of pickle brine and garlic salt, but I didn't think the cheese brine would play well in this room. But so you'll have to take their word for it. But again, working in groups, and not just working in groups and collaborating and doing this research, it actually was actionable to the extent where this is going to inform decision making for the Beekman Conservation Advisory Council, which informs the Beekman Town Board. So not just like in a classroom, but they're doing research that is truly going to impact governmental decision making on a local level, which is pretty exciting. And on a large level, this is an initiative that started a few years ago under Ms. Beam and is continuing this year under Ms. Agate. Our science department students are working with the International Space Center to send experiments into space. And specifically, they're doing, and I'm going to read this because some of these words I don't actually know what they are, the effect on microgravity on the hatching rate of rotifers, and examining Artemia selena hatchling in the presence of microgravity. That sounds really exciting. But joking aside, I mean, what an incredible thing. This was a competition that the students had to submit things for. Even there was an art component with a patch that had to be approved. Our students were competing, they won, and literally they're sending things into outer space. So pretty exciting and speaks to the real world applications of this learning. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Begier.
Mr. Roddy, you're so well spoken. I think you should just do the rest of them really good there. Austin, how you doing, pal? How's Mari? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi, everybody. I want to talk a little bit about the Social Studies Department, specifically with an initiative we started last year, which is project-based learning. Now, we've always done project-based learning, but not on a real large scale. So I had gone into Mr. Roddy's office last year, and I said, Mr. Roddy, can I try an experiment with my Social Studies Global class? And he said, go for it. So what we did is we did a 4-week deep dive into Roman architecture. I think I have to click this to go to the next one right here. There we go. And it was really deeply involved. I mean, we always study Rome and everything that goes on with Roman architecture and such, but this was a deep dive where the kids actually had to produce a product. They had to work in teams, and by the way, these teams were not chosen. These teams were randomly selected to put kids together, which I'll explain to you why I think that's a really, really good thing in a moment. And for that, of course, they had to create the project, but then they had to give us a little bit of the historical background of it, and then make external connections to mathematics, to science, and to literacy. And so the kids were diving in other areas, making connections that sometimes we don't get to do inside the social studies class. The key for this is there were deadlines. We set a very strong deadline and said, kids, this is when it's due, because all these people are going to show up, including our superintendent, some wonderful board members, lots and lots of our teachers are going to show up. And if you're not there, your booth is going to be empty. So again, that's a real world situation that the kids are really trying to prepare. And you know, there were some setbacks. There were kids who couldn't find certain things, and somebody's project got broken by somebody else, and you know, all these kind of things that go on. And the kids would come to me and I say, clock is ticking right here. We got to get this done. And I will tell you that every single kid, there were 17 groups in my 2 classes, every single one of them got the project done, and that included the project plus a 3 trifold back that had all this information on it, had it on the table, ready to go. Some of them came in like 3 minutes before we opened the doors, but they were ready to go. And I always tell the kids, this is the real world, because here's the deal. Someday when you get out of here and you get a job, unless your family's rich and you're working for a company that your family owns, you're going to work for somebody who is going to put you in groups with people that you might not even get along with. But in the end, there are no excuses. You have to produce the product. And these kids I saw some kids that just some different skills came in of different kids that this was a way they expressed themselves, and it was just a really, really cool thing to see. Some more pictures, I believe. Oh, by the way, I had about 20 slides, but Dr. Summers cut me down to a couple. But this is the kids in action. And for the most part, I, as a teacher, gave them a very detailed rubric. I gave them the information. I gave them the guidance. I put together lots of the supplies. And again, for a social studies teacher trying to organize a lot of the art supplies, thank you to Mrs. Schultes, who really helped me and came to my rescue. And many of the times we going down, we ran out of red paint. She's got it there for me. It was wonderful. But anyways, they worked really hard on it. They put it together. They worked in groups, again, with people that they might not normally associate with. And in the end, we had our gallery day. Now, this is my room, 266. We had about 68 people in that room. We probably broke some fire code regulations there. I apologize for that. But all of these were set up. And I do have to give a big hand out again to all of the administration and the teachers who gave up their lunch period to be in here to make this happen. At the end of it, we did the other part of this whole thing. It was a group grade, but then there was a journal they had to keep during the whole project and kind of see what the experience was like. And in the end, they had to create a reflective essay to kind of tell us what happened in the whole project. And there was lots of different feedback. I'll be honest, there were some kids that didn't like it, but there were a lot of kids that really did. More kids than I thought really got into, again, the project itself, making those extra connections, and believe it or not, working with people they may not have normally worked with. So this is just a couple more. And again, as you can see in those pictures, lots of our teachers, lots of our administrators coming in, taking a look, asking good questions. And I think for the most part, if anybody can just say, you got some good feedback from these kids that they were definitely making some of those connections. So shaking a little bit. That's weird. I never shake. Wow. Maybe it's just the top. Anyways, we are going to, after we did a little bit of analysis on this, we're going to do this again this year. We're going to scale it down a little bit. We're going to move it to 3 weeks and make some adjustments because, again, when you do an experiment, you learn and then you make adjustments after that. But we're going to extend it this year, not just to my Global 9 classes. Mrs. Huber is going to be on this too. So every Global 9 student will be involved with this late January, early February this year as we get into this project. So. Again, this is something that, I, as a teacher who's been teaching for many years, they always say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I kind of like this stuff. It's pretty cool. And, I'm looking forward to doing it in some of my other classes, too, as we go along. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Who's next?
And I do want to highlight that this is not the only project that he's doing. This is not the only thing. When you go by classroom, sometimes I don't even know where you are now.
All right, hello again. So briefly, I'm just going to talk about world language, such a crucial thing, always in the world, but even more right now, when we're talking about bringing people together and understanding of different areas, different countries, different regions of the world. To be able to learn a language has so many cognitive benefits, but it also helps us have more empathy and learn more about others. And I know the World Language Department's a big proponent of international travel. They work with an organization, CIEE, and I know that Mr. Bruguiere, as well as Ms. Griffin and others, they organize some international trips as well to really broaden our perspectives. A few things that the department wanted to highlight in Spanish, LAMS has been working on interdisciplinary projects and collaborating, making a board game of chance similar to bingo. You can see there some great pictures of the students where they made Red Hook specific ones. And in French, Ms. Doyle's 8th grade French class actually navigated a real French clothing store and chose different items all in French, labeled them in French, priced them out in euros, and compared French and American clothing styles with an actual budget. So very interdisciplinary, thinking about a business course and a language course all combined, because this is the real world. These contents don't operate in silos. We never say, well, I'm going to go do just math or just science. Everything is connected. So I think it shows that our teachers in all our buildings are really embracing that concept. Advanced placement as well is certainly alive and well. While we're very proud of our IB programming and dual enrollment, we still offer a lot of wonderful AP selections where students can get future-focused job training by fostering creativity, collaboration, and empathy, tackling problems, thinking innovatively, and developing solutions that mirror real workplace challenges. So again, we have a number of AP classes. I mentioned AP Computer Science before, and this allows a lot of our students to earn college credit in the building, which is wonderful. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Decker.
Good evening. My name is Diana Decker, and I'm an English teacher at the high school and also our school's IB coordinator. And I'd like to talk with you tonight about an important component of the International Baccalaureate program called Creativity, Activity, and Service, or CAS for short. CAS supports students in engaging with activities beyond the classroom, outside of the classroom, recognizing and valuing each student as a whole person. Through creative experiences, community service, and physical activity, CAS fosters equity and inclusivity and helps students thrive in a changing world. CAS includes both CAS experiences and CAS projects. CAS experiences can be ongoing or single events that the students engage in, such as a sports season or volunteering at a community cleanup day. And then each student will also complete what's called a CAS project. And this can be any combination of creativity, activity, or service, but the CAS project requires the student to conceive, research, plan, collaborate with others, and demonstrate a project that is their own creation. And I just have some examples of some recent creativity, community service, and activity experiences that our students have completed. So some examples of creativity experiences include learning a new instrument, joining the spring musical, painting a mural at the high school, creating a new show on RHBC. Some examples of activity experiences. These can be school-based, such as playing on a varsity sports team, but they can also be things that happen outside of the school, such as horseback riding or training for a half marathon. We just had a student recently work on that. And some examples of community service experiences. We had a group of students working to register people to vote, volunteering at the Red Hook Food Bank, joining the mentor program, delivering meals for Red Hook Responds, earning a wilderness first aid certification, so quite varied there as well. And IB encourages reflection throughout the entirety of the diploma program. So prior to the students' experiences, we ask them to write a reflection that explains why they're embarking on that particular experience. They write about their concerns and fears, their excitement for the experience, their personal attributes, which might help them, and areas they hope to improve. And we ask them to predict their learning outcomes. These are learning outcomes identified by IB, and you can see there are 7 listed here. And it is these 7 skills that they explicitly refer to when they write their reflections. And then after they complete the experience, they write a reflection on what they've learned and what effect the experience has had on them. And finally, as I said, each student will complete a CAS project, and this is something that the student conceives of for him or herself. They can work together in groups on their CAS projects as well, and these are just some recent examples. We had a couple of students teach younger students music theory and then helped them perform a concert for their parents. Danielle planned and executed a 2K run to raise funds for suicide awareness with one of her classmates. We had a student direct a one-act play in the Performing Arts Center. We had a group of students host a trivia night at the rec park last year to raise money for sustainable water systems. And we've had students organize recently a concert for local bands with proceeds going to local shelters. So again, quite varied activities coming from the students' own interests. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Julia Schultes. I'm the art coordinator and also an art teacher at the high school. I've had a unique opportunity to be able to help develop a new course we started a couple of years ago called Art and Storytelling. I teach this with Mrs. Shannon, and very grateful that Christine Griffin and Dr. Summers has definitely supported this effort, and it's been really a fantastic opportunity to work with the kids in this way. There were a lot of things that I learned. kind of started years ago. I had took a course out in, well, it was part of my associate's degree out in California. It was called Interdisciplinary Studies in Letters and Sciences, and it changed my world, just seeing the connections between the disciplines, teachers working together. It made me start to like to learn for the first time in my life, really. And so I even wrote my thesis in college for my master's degree on interdisciplinary because it was that impactful. So really excited to be able to have an opportunity to develop a course like this at the high school. There's so many things that, great things that have come about it. Some I anticipated, and a lot of things that I never even saw coming that was really just amazing to see. So basically, we work together, we weave the combination of English and art together. The students learn how to analyze text and visual art. They learn compositional strategies for literature and art. They all learn how to plan, create, and revise compositions, whether it be visual or written. They learn how to express themselves through writing, speaking, and visual mediums. It's a very hands-on approach. Some of the things that we realized that were benefits for the students with this is that Ms. Shannon and I get to brainstorm our lessons together, and on my own, I think I come up with decent lessons, always, trying to get really fun lessons for the kids, but working with another teacher allows us to, we go back and forth, and I think of something, and then she'll say, oh, and then what about this? And we're creating these really dynamic lessons beyond what I would ever be able to do myself. When we're assessing the students, we have more than one person making decisions. We have 2 different points of view on that, so it really benefits the students to have more than one person looking at the work and being able to assess it. Certainly the students are learning to see these connections and how English or literature and art, all the various ways that they connect. We really have been working with global topics, especially this year as we're a pre-IB class now, mainly teaching 9th and 10th graders. Right now we have some seniors in it. But so we're really basing our connections on global topics. So they're learning that through a variety of mediums, not just one way, but through many different mediums and techniques. Because there's 2 of us in the classroom, even if one of us is absent, the curriculum still goes on. We never need a substitute. We never have yet needed a substitute because there's always somebody there to keep the learning going. And really, I've just come to find more than anything, the energy in the classroom, it's just very fun, joyous. I think between the 2 of us, there's a lot of energy going on. So some of those were unexpected until we started to teach, and we said, wow, this is really, just such a great way for the students to see 2 teachers interacting like this and collaborating. And we've even had students that have said, wow, we really, could see what it's like for people for the teachers to collaborate and communicate and work together. So I think we're really modeling that type of collaboration, which is really, I think, a great thing. This was something that was online that I had found that just talks about the interplay between visual art and literature, the complement and balance. They complement and balance each other. Visual elements can enhance and clarify a narrative, guiding readers through the story and aiding comprehension. And meanwhile, the written word can provide context, depth, and nuance to visual art, allowing the audience to better understand and appreciate the artist's intentions. And by that, it's, obviously if you're reading something and you have some pictures with it, it kind of helps to understand what you're reading. But with art, we always encourage students to have an artist statement that helps to clarify some of the conceptual parts of the artwork. So it really does work nicely together. This is just one example of a project the students are working on now. We're using the global topic of identity. The students have been reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs, and basically they are sculpting a lidded container. On the outside, it basically identifies different characteristics of the students. They have to brainstorm about themselves, different parts symbolizing different aspects of their personality that they might, that people would see about them, that they think they're being perceived as. And then on the inside, there are symbolic tokens that the students create that represent who they are, who they feel they are on the inside, and that how they perceive themselves. So at the end of this lesson, then they write a reflection, an artist statement that explains their artistic choices and intentions. And so it's a really nice collaboration between a hands-on project and also written explanation like an artist statement. So it's really been fun seeing that, being able to weave these two disciplines together. And the students, I think, are having a good time doing it and learning a lot. So it's been really, again, a really great opportunity and fun to see something that really helped me as a student learn and enjoy learning, and now getting to teach the students in this way.
Jack is trying to steal the mic from me. Hi, I'm Carol Ann Miles. I am the Family and Consumer Science teacher at Red Hook High School. I'm also the department liaison for Career Technology, Library, and Family and Consumer Science. We're doing some really cool things up at the high school, middle school, and the librarians K-12, which all are part of my scope, if you will. Up at the high school, we're doing baking classes, food science, which is a super fun class. We just did this great lesson, well, I think it was great, and the kids did too, on donuts, because glazed donuts are the perfect combination of fat and sugar that your body craves. So we made, I think I figured out I made 16 pounds of donuts yesterday. Yeah, and I smelled like a donut the entire day. So the kids had a lot of fun doing that. We talked about yeast, what makes yeast come alive, that yeast is a living organism, that some people don't eat yeast because they're vegans and they believe they're killing something. So we got into this whole great discussion, and then the kids were eating donuts, and they were like, I'm glad I'm not a vegan, and I'm very happy to eat this sugar-fat combination. So we're doing lots of fun stuff in food science. We're talking about nutrition. We're talking about what our body needs, what our body doesn't need, reading labels, what you should be looking for in a food, what you should not be eating in a food, the importance of good breakfast. We're talking about all sorts of stuff. In Steve Hutman's classes, he's doing a lot of great stuff. He helped me with the garden because I'm also the garden coordinator at the high school. He built all new beds with one of his residential construction classes, which look fabulous. We got some great dirt in there, and it's ready to go for the spring. We're going to plant some stuff and then use it in the kitchen and also in my classroom. So Steve's also been looking towards getting a welding program at the high school, getting certified to be a welding instructor. So he's definitely future focused, looking towards some stuff that would really help the kids for career and long-term focus there. What else is going on at the high school? We're doing some neat new classes, financial literacy. I stopped in that class today, and they were doing some credit card information, trying to explain to the kids what compounded interest is, what a credit card is, how it works, using a checkbook. And checkbooks, not a lot of people use them anymore. My husband always tells the story that he had a friend in college who said, well, no, I have plenty of money in my checkbook. I still have like 20 checks left. So, we were talking about that as an example. Like, they need to understand this is not money. It's not monopoly money. So, yeah, it's a true story. So they're doing great stuff in that classroom as well. And overall, I think things are going great. The library is, they're meeting as a collective group once a month on the half days or whenever the half days at the elementary school happen, because they're working on rewriting some of the curriculum and some of the bylaws for the library to make sure their collections are up to date. So, yeah, okay.
And I just want to spend a few moments on career and technical education. We have students that attend BOCES, and the enrollment in these programs have doubled over the last few years. Students participate in many programs, such as agricultural production, automotive technology, cosmetology, electrician, HVAC, welding and nursing. So that is another offering that students attend outside of the high school, and that has really increased. So next. Okay, now Jack.
I was so excited before I jumped my gun there. Okay, so of course we have, when we think of equity, right, and inclusion, people often think of our special ed students. And one of the things that we've really been working on is to really offer more opportunities for inclusion, right? One of the things you've heard me talk about is other districts actually sending their kids here so that their kids don't have to be in an out-of-district program from their district, and they have the opportunity to be included, right? So along with that is, the IB. I'm going to get to the IB slide because last year when they started talking about IB for all, I was like, oh my, okay. And then we did a tour to a school downstate that had been doing it for a while. I spent a lot of time with their special ed folks and said, how's it going? And they shared that they had the same reaction that I had about IB for all, but they've been doing it for a number of years, and they said it has gone marvelously. My experience so far is it has been wonderful for our kids. Kids who would typically not engage in IB or AP or honors level work are now seeing that I can do this. And they're starting to build a sense of confidence in themselves that I anticipate will open more doors for them. And it was because of the work that our folks at the high school did to make that commitment to do IB for all, right? That opened that up for them. And, in the 9th and 10th grade, where they have a variety of electives to choose from, one of the ways we're offering additional support for those students is last year when kids chose their options, what their choices were, we looked at the options that had the most special education students in them, and that's where we assigned special ed teachers to be co-teachers of those classes to give that additional support so that those kids, could access an IB-like curriculum to the best of their ability, and they're doing very well. In terms of the slide earlier with technology, when we're talking about the equity committee, equity is not equality, right? And so, we don't necessarily want equal, we want equitable. And so the one-to-one device, for example, is equality. Everyone has the same thing, right? What we're going then beyond that is the equitable piece, where you use that device and give kids other tools through that device that open up doors for them. Speech to text, text to speech. There might be, if we have textbooks that are web-based, they can use the tool to have it read to them, to look up vocabulary that may not be familiar to them. And it lends a sense of independence. Now, of course, we do have kids who are using AAC devices for adaptive communication that are not verbal, right? We have younger kids using those tools. We have older kids using those tools. But that's usually through an iPad. But the kids, I know I have a couple people who are investigating different math apps because text to speech, or speech to text rather, for math is not all that easy or even doable. So as apps start to come out, people are always on the hunt of how do we expand access for all students. So we really are focusing on the equity of it. And in terms of the career and technical education piece, we have kids in 3 different BOCES, Ulster BOCES, Dutchess BOCES, and Questar 3 BOCES. And Questar 3 BOCES does something that other BOCES don't necessarily do, and they have a career studies collection of programs. So for kids who aren't quite ready for a full automotive program or a full culinary program or a full construction trades program, they have the career study option for that. So it's, they kind of slow it down. It's smaller groups of kids. There's additional adult support. Not all special ed students. It's a variety of special and regular ed students. But not here, because we've just started sending kids there a couple years ago, but in my previous district, I had students who couldn't do automotive yet, but they did auto services for a couple of years, got enough base knowledge that they were then able to do the auto technology program. So there's a variety of options that we're opening up for our students. And then to tie into that is the work-based learning piece. And thank you for supporting my desire to add a full-time teaching assistant last year as a job coach, working primarily with our flex students, but not always. We do have other students that our TA is working with to give them real work experiences. And these are just some of the places our kids have been to, the aerodrome, the community center, the elementary school, Rose Hill Farms, Red Hook Library, I2 Evolve Art Studio, CVS in Red Hook, and he is expanding those opportunities for students. And while we used to wait until their last 2 years with us, we're now, I've asked that Randy give, as soon as kids come to the high school, start giving them small school work experiences. So whether it's 1 day a week here in the building, up to, you know, maybe a half day outside of the building. We have had some students who are, you know, having the people where they're going, the place they're going, say they'd like to hire them because they're doing such a great job. And one of the other things that, she's still here? Oh, she left. Ms. Fiore has just said that she would be interested in becoming, being certified in work-based learning. So then we could actually award credit for our students doing work-based learning experiences. Now, back.
Okay, so a wide range of things going on across the district. Part of the fabric of what we do here is certainly support our teachers with current future-focused practices. So here's a picture of Dr. Linda Jordan. We've been working with her since last fall, and that is through the Successful Practices Network, which is Dr. Bill Daggett, who we have been working with for multiple years. And all these people are nationally known, and they really do bring us the best professional development that looks at neuroscience, that looks at the why of it, that looks at best practices. This year, we broke up the Professional Development Day with elementary teachers and then secondary, and it was focused on the brain development of our students. We have sent teachers to the New York State Art Association Conference, International Social Studies teacher, International Conference on World War II, teachers to Learning in the Brain. On we go, but we continue to have teachers select what they'd like to attend for their own professional development, and it is at many levels. And we see those practices in their classroom, in their instructional methods. And, you know, the Anxious Generation book study, Matt Funicello is doing that across the district. Great feedback on that. And this is very supportive. In order to have a future-focused staff, we have to be providing support through professional development. We also are very reflective in our practice. These are just the summer curriculum projects that happened last summer. And every summer, teachers look at every school year, they look at what the areas of need, growth, development that's necessary to be current, and then this district supports summer curriculum projects. Another area that we are very committed to is arts and education. This is last week, the students in grades 3 through 5 performed Midsummer's Night Dream at the PAC. Great, absolutely fabulous performance, and that's through arts and education. Every student in grades 3 through 5 go through a 6-week, twice a week workshop, and it's just part of our fabric here is that we do try to encompass things that students can learn a lot about, and this certainly sets them up well for their experience at the middle and high school. All of these things are supported through funding, through BOCES, and the district has, and we try to have our teachers pick something that will add to their curriculum, the student's experience. We, of course, and I know the board has been on tours, we've updated our instructional spaces, which also adds to the fabric of our learning environments. And that is the end of our presentation. So some highlights that happened. We're doing fabulous things daily, and our students benefit from it. So thank you very much for listening to us. I want to thank each of these teachers and administrators and many more behind me that could not attend tonight, but certainly added to this presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Like amazing.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we were highlighting, if you go back to the goals, that one of the things we're setting out doing is creating a curriculum that's rigorous and relevant. So hopefully we're able to see some of that, as well as students being able to access things like collaboration, communication, empathy. So a lot of that is weaved throughout that through the concept of project-based learning you've heard us talk about. Interdisciplinary, we want to continue to increase that, as well as that idea of real world, authentic learning, that students learn so much more when there's a purpose and it applies to what their thinking is and what they're passionate about. So this is the beginning of some of the things that we're looking to change and obviously grow on. So if the board has any questions for us, that's great. We're going to do the data presentation after.
Yeah, Jen?
Yeah, I do. I'm just curious if there has been any further consideration to having a second language introduced at a younger grade level, at the primary level.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that numerous times and costed it out, and I think the cost to the district was, Bruce, I don't want to be misquoted, but I think it was like $500,000.
Yeah, because I think it involved multiple staff to support that.
So if every grade level, every section had a class, and that was from, like, say we started in kindergarten and went all the way up to 6th grade, each teacher, is it about 100?
For their load, yes. So I know that it's been a while since we did the analysis, but when we talked about it, it was multiple teachers to cover the elementary grade level and keep continuity up through those grade levels. So it ended up with a fairly high price tag.
But we can certainly research that again for next year, just as a price if people are interested.
I would be interested to see some different possibilities for that, because there might be different ways that you could go about it. Maybe there's 3 to 5, 3rd through 5th has, more often has this, the teacher, the second language, and then the pre-K through 2nd has a different arrangement where maybe their own teacher is teaching them, some vocabulary or something like that. I'm just wondering if there's a way to integrate it, differently that doesn't require hiring 2 full-time teachers. Maybe there's some different ways to go about it.
Yeah, I can talk to Mrs. Strothman and Dr. Boyd about other options. We can do that.
It'd be great to see.
Well, my concern, I think it's good to start earlier, but I feel like we have such a difficult time finding language teachers at all levels. I mean, what's your your read on that?
I think we just hired, I don't know how many applicants we had, but Spanish? How many applicants?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it's been very difficult. I looked for a German teacher, non-existent, and Spanish was a number of years ago.
But I do know that when you go on the job site for the area, basically every school is looking for that.
That is true.
So, but we certainly can price it out and think about some options and see what we can come up with, and we can fit it in the budget.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I thought the presentation was great. It was nice to kind of get an overview of, a broad range of the curriculum.
I think one of the things, one of the great things about the teachers here is that we get out of their way a lot too. Teachers are extremely creative, so I think we're creating the conditions where we're saying, how can we look at this differently? How do we want this curriculum to be relevant? students need to be engaged more than ever. They're looking at screens all day long. They're taking in a lot. So we want to create that place where they feel like they have purpose and they're going to leave with some idea of maybe not exactly what they want to do, but they know some areas where they like to pursue or just some of their interests. And we have someone who's gone through our system now. So we're just always looking to say, can we have the same system? Our preschool kids are not going to have the same system because the world is not the same. So we have to continue to evolve not only with technology, but with our instructional practices and how school looks for kids and how we're preparing kids for the world.
And I would just like to add that when the regent visited us, we took her around to the middle school and the high school, and she said she could feel the energy coming from the classrooms, but also the teachers, that we as an administrative team really support their own creativity. And like Dr. Warden said, we kind of get out of their way because they really are the experts, and it goes through the whole process of who we hire, how we support them, how we allow them to bring good ideas to the forefront and support them, and then how that curriculum, summer curriculum mapping goes, the professional development, the practice in the classroom, the experience of the students, and the data that's collected around that is really an ongoing cycle that makes the whole system work well for students.
Yeah. I do like to see the regular evolution of classes, adding computer science, some of the interdisciplinary classes, the one that was presented, art and storytelling. I know a year or two ago they introduced, it was an English and food fusion class, word to table, yeah. Yeah, but, there's regular upgrading or, not upgrading, but evolution of some of the classes.
I would also say that the slide that struck me the most was the data slide on how well the IB for all students are doing. I mean, that was very powerful. We constantly are asking for data. We're stuck with these state tests that half the kids opt out of. You hear in the news about literacy rates. I mean, I think, I credit Mrs. Decker and Mrs. Griffin for taking a chance on these kids, but when motivated and pushed and believe in themselves, I mean, those were incredible, incredible results for something that I think a lot of people probably question. So I thought that was very powerful because I would rather data like that from teachers we know and trust than state tests that just,
It's good to hear it's going well. I did have one question. Are all of the 11th graders they're all taking IB English, are they all going to take the IB exam?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be the good benchmark to see, if they've all been able to really step up to the IB level, at least in one class. So, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, we know the research says that the highest indicator of student achievement is all teachers working together for a collective goal, and also the second one is the expectations you have of students. So if I expect you to perform and I give you the conditions, kids rise.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the second presentation. Did someone else have a question?
I just wanted to say that one of the common themes for me that stuck out was, and someone even had mentioned it, but sense of community just kept coming up for me, as well as things being teacher-led, which those both are huge motivators for students. And I was getting the feeling, without talking about the exact data and performance, but just the feeling from the teachers speaking and administrators that there is a greater motivation in the classrooms around the curriculum that's being introduced, and there's a new excitement. And that was exciting even for me, who haven't been into the high school. So I just wanted to share that. That was my takeaway.
Just to add to that, I have had the pleasure of having most of the teachers that presented tonight. And part of me is like, where was this when I was in high school? But at the end of the day, hearing you all present and share what you're doing with your students is really, it's heartwarming to hear, and I'm glad you took the time tonight to come out and share that with us. It's very clear that you're proud of your students and excited by what you're teaching and what they're learning. So I appreciate you taking the time, and it's also it's very nice to hear updates on what's happening in the district in regards to equity. I appreciate those updates, and I'm excited to see what comes out of things like the Equity Committee. And then I'll just add, everything positive about the IB for All courses that is being offered. It all sounds very encouraging. I'm excited to hear more that comes out of it. So thank you all.
Yeah. I would like to take an extra moment to thank all the teachers, and the materials that came for this presentation was from our teacher leaders, from their teachers, from the administration. So when I put up Dr. Summers and a team, I truly mean that we work together as a team. I want to especially thank the people who came out tonight. Busy month, but they still took the time because they are very excited and motivated to highlight what happens daily. And I will share with you, it is a lot of hard work, constant work, and the time they take for professional development, give up their summers for curriculum development. It is all part of the fabric of what we do here, how we are really striving to be very equitable and inclusive, and how it changes our practice each year. So we are not stagnant.
Excellent.
All right. Going to go on to the next presentation. Dr. Summers and Lisa Polaro are going to talk about data. I also just want to add that a lot of this can't happen without all of you on the board. I do want to reiterate that supporting us doing this is also part of thanking all of you here, because we are taking risks and at times not knowing exactly where it's going to land. So we appreciate that too.
I think that's sorry to jump in and not make noise. No, but I sometimes, there's a number of innovations for block scheduling, new classes, IB for all in the 11th grade. And, there's a lot of these things that, you don't know if you don't try. And you do, and it does involve taking a risk. And so I do think as a board, it's sometimes important for us to, stand behind the administrative team that has put itself out there to take risks in some cases. And it's okay to ask for data, which we are anxious to see.
Okay, so good evening again. This is our annual data presentation that we present, and I do the presentation with...
Good evening, I'm Lisa Polaro, and I work with the district as a consultant, working with the data collection and reporting for all state assessments, teacher information, et cetera, things that eventually show up on the state report card on the state education website. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is the information that has been released to date. And I just want to preface it by saying that we are only permitted to discuss what has already been released by the State Education Department. Any other data remains embargoed at this point that we can share with you when that embargo is lifted.
So this, our focus in the beginning of this presentation is the grades 3 through 8 ELA and math assessment. Again, these are state exams. They take them in the spring, and they are assessed on the next generation learning standards. Assessment scales, performance level scores, scores change each year, and they are determined by standard setting. So these are the scores, the cut scores for grade English, and each grade level has different levels. Level 1, level 2, 3, and 4. 3 and 4 indicate proficiency at that grade level. These are the cut scores for math.
Just a couple of statistics in terms of some of the subgroups that we also report out on. The information that is submitted through the assessment data and through student information encompasses all students in the district, but it also gets reported out by certain subgroups, and this is one of them. for the 23-24 school year, 29% of the students qualified for free or reduced price lunch. And that was a slight increase from the year prior. In 22-23, it was 27%. So a small increase to 23-24. Now we'll take a look at some subgroups of those students actually sitting for the exams last spring. In the total of grades 3 through 8, 29% of the students that sat for the exam, so really right on the mark for the percentage of the students eligible for free and reduced price lunch in the district, was 29%. So sometimes that may differ a little bit from the overall percentage versus those that actually sat. Last year it just happened to be the same. And another subgroup that we look at is students with disabilities. And last year, for all the students that sat for the assessments in grades 3 through 8, 12% were students with disabilities. And this was a slight decrease from the prior year. The prior year, it was 13%. Now, we do want to talk about refusal rates. The state refers to them as refusal rates when they are reported. Many people will call them opt-out rates. We are talking about the same thing. The language is interchangeable when we talk about this. And you can see that generally speaking, as the grade level increases, the refusal rate or the opt-out rate increases as well. So actually we've seen the numbers at the elementary level 3 through 5 have gone down over the years. They've actually all gone down somewhat. But I do want to highlight grade 8. At the grade 8 level, we have students that will take the Algebra 1 in lieu of the Math 8, or they'll take the Living Environment in lieu of the Science 8. So those percentages of 82% for math and 83% we have deducted those students that sat for the Regents exams. So this represents the number of students that have refused or opted out of the remaining students that could have sat for the assessment. And I'll give you some of those numbers for you just for reference purposes. Last year at Linden Avenue, 39 students sat for the Algebra 1 Regents, and 38 students sat for the Living Environment Regents. And obviously it stands to reason that the higher the refusal or opt-out rate, the fewer assessments or fewer data points we have to analyze the information. But I want to point out that as we talk about, while we're focusing on state assessments on this presentation, it's just one measure that the district uses. The district has other measures, and Dr. Summers will hit upon later some things like the NWEA that are utilized in the district as well at different points throughout the year. This is one data point that we use in the district. It is not the only data point.
Have we made an effort, I'm assuming we probably have, but what efforts have we made to try and explain the rationale, the importance for parents in having their students take these exams? I, hear different over the years. I've heard different, parents not want their kids to take it for all sorts of, sometimes unfounded reasons.
Yes, letters are sent, the calls are made at the elementary level, the middle school tries to get students to take the test. Students can literally refuse to take the test, and there's not much we can do about it. So we can try another campaign to make sure that we're putting out that this is, yes, it is one moment in time, but it is aligned with the state standards. And so it is an indicator of grade level areas of need, instructional need, and other supports that we could offer students if they sat and took the test.
I just have a question. How do our opt-out rates correlate with other districts, neighboring districts?
We do not have access to that data. Okay. There is nothing out there that says Rhinebeck has a percentage of opt-outs. That is only an internal number, so it's not for public release.
But you probably have a sense from your friends that that work in other districts.
I would say that it's.
I'm asking an honest question. You must have a sense. I mean, are we like some anomaly?
No.
No, you're not an anomaly,
Okay.
and I personally don't have access to data for other school districts. I can tell you that in Red Hook, while some of these numbers, as you get up to grades, 7 and 8, are high, they do represent a decrease from last year. And I also want to point out that these are multi-day tests. So a student may come in and sit for day 1 and then refuse day 2. That's considered a refusal or an opt-out.
Right.
And actually, we do have some students, believe it or not, that will not take day 1 and come in and sit for day 2. But we don't have a complete test, so it's still considered a refusal or an opt-out.
Yeah, I think that's a concept maybe people don't understand, that a kid can refuse to take the test too.
Mhm.
It's not only, a lot of this is parents sending emails and saying they refuse, but also students can, and also I think you'll probably talk about moving to computer-based testing also has an impact on scores. And typically the scores go down slightly as well.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because the state is moving toward computer-based testing across all grade levels. Last year, I believe it was the 5th grade science that was required on the, all 5th grade required on the computer-based testing. Paper-based was the other option, but they are moving toward computer-based across all of the grade levels.
So will the assessments this year be computer-based for grades 3 through 8? All of them?
On the next screen, we're going to talk about proficiency, and as Dr. Summer mentioned, levels 3 and 4 are considered proficient on these assessments. And you saw the cut scores earlier on for the ELA in math. And this gives you an indication for all students would be the rust color, the lighter rust color bar, the gray color bar, economically disadvantaged students that sat for the exam, and the darker color rust color bar is our students with disabilities that sat for the assessment. So this is the percentage of students at grade levels for ELA that scored at levels 3 and 4 on the assessment and in spring of 24. Now, I also want to say this is the highest level we can look at. Obviously, again, this is what has been released. Embargo has been lifted on this information from SED. However, this is just the highest level we can look at. We're able to drill down on this information to very detailed data such as student level, question information, standards that the question was tested on, and there are also a number of released questions each year. As a matter of fact, and I told them I wasn't going to put them on the spot, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I recently met with Brian and Kristen, and we went over some of the released questions. And as you look at the released questions and the percentage of students that got them correct or incorrect, we're then able to see what percentage of students chose the incorrect answer. And in some cases, we could say, yeah, I get it. I understand why they chose that answer and not what the correct answer was going to be. Sometimes it was the way that the question was worded. Other times it was just a question that was very closely related to another answer that was possible. So we get down to that kind of level, and we also look across the classrooms and we say this classroom scored particularly high on this question in this type of standard, and this leads us to professional development and best practices and sharing across the grade levels. So this is the ELA and this is the math, and you can see we have the same breakdown for all students, economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. So the question always comes up, how do we compare with other districts? But the only information we have available to us for the other districts is what has been released. And by the way, let me just give you that URL if you're interested in going out and looking at the released information. It is data.nysed.gov. That is the state site. You can get the statewide information, and you're going to see some comparison here to the entire state. You can get it by county, which is an aggregate for all of the districts in a particular county, and then you can get it for particular school districts as well. And that's what we're going to look at on the next screen. So this is the grade 3 ELA, and we've selected a number of school districts right here in Dutchess County. And this is proficiency on levels 3 and 4 on the grade 3 ELA. And then over on, I've also included Germantown since they're our neighbor directly to the north in Columbia County. And then on the far right, you'll see in the purple bar, that's the comparison to New York State. And as I said, just because we see that And you can go through these slides because you'll see the third grade math, and then we're going to go to the fourth grade ELA. They're all going to look similar. And again, just because, and let's stick with this one for just a minute here, fourth grade math. Just because we're performing at 69% and the state is performing at 58%, we don't say, oh, great, we're doing very well on the fourth grade math. We can, rest easy. No, there are still items within the fourth grade assessment and standards that we want to look more closely at and drill down further and look at those reports and look at the student level data, look at classroom level data, et cetera. Look at the questions. How is it worded? What type of language are we using in our curriculum to explain a certain concept? And is that same language being used universally across the classrooms that might change the performance of students?
Lisa, can you
Yes.
just quickly just note about the difficulty of us comparing year to year?
Yes. There is no comparison year to year. That's the easy answer because the tests change. And on the very first slides where we looked at the cut scores change every year. It's standard setting, it's psychometrics that are beyond my understanding and ability to do that type of work. But the cut scores change every year. The tests change every year. There is a report available to us to use internally called a trend report, where we may see a particular skill and standard tested in 1 year and not tested again for 2 more years. So there is not that continuity over time where we can definitively say, oh, we have improved in this area over time because either the question or the type of standard, learning standard may not exist on the previous assessment or on the current assessment, or it may have been designed to be a more difficult question to determine those students that are going to be proficient at level 3 or 4 versus students that might also get it correct at levels 1 and 2, et cetera. So the difficulty changes, the standards change, and the trending shows us that over time, not all the same standards are tested year to year. And again, we can, I think you all have a copy of this presentation, so we won't dwell on just showing you that each of these comparisons for the grade levels and the assessments.
One thing I noticed when I was reviewing this last night, and I noticed that, and I guess this is the tricky thing and the quality of the data is that, and I can't remember the example, but, we may have been what looked like low in 4th grade English, but then 5th grade English were suddenly very high.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And yeah, when you saw inconsistencies, and so you couldn't necessarily look and look at like 4th grade English and say, well, maybe there's something we need to improve on, because when you look at 5th grade English, suddenly we're very high.
Right.
Well,
And that's why
it's not like it's not like machines. They're people. So it's like the differences in skill set, and also to the test. The test has been changed so often that even the amount of testing days last year was different than the year before. So I think that the best thing for our teachers and our administration is to look at that test for that particular year, and like you said before, look at the standards, look at the itemized, then go back and say where in our curriculum, but also they don't have every student taking the test either.
Correct.
So that's why it goes back to that one data point that we talked about, that this is just one in a vast amount of data that you look
one
at.
measure.
Right.
Yeah.
This one I just want to highlight because I did talk about the 8th grade math assessment, and I think I quoted that there were 39 students that sat for the Algebra 1 in lieu of the Math 8. So the first solid bar, the first solid yellow bar, if you will, there for Red Hook, is the percentage of students that sat for the Math 8 that met proficiency. The second one, which is the striped bar, shows the percentage of students that sat for the Algebra 1 regents that met proficiency. And then the third bar, which is a very, very light yellow that you can barely tell, where it says 85%, that's the combination of all students meeting proficiency, whether they took the grade 8 math assessment or whether they took the Algebra 1. And that's the important number because when the State Education Department releases accountability data and they calculate accountability, they use a combination of the students sitting for the Regents exam as well as sitting for the 8th grade math assessment. And the same is true for the science exam as well. So that's why on the math slide you'll see multiple bars for each district.
On that data, if you can back up for a second, do we know how we compare? I mean, one thing that keeps our 85% up fairly high is that we have, I assume, a high percentage of students that are taking algebra in the 8th grade. And
39 students last year.
Out of 130, 140?
Yeah, approximately.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And do we, and so on a percentage basis, that is 25% maybe.
Right.
Do we know how that compares with other districts?
It's roughly the same. I do want to point out that when I looked at the data, you'll see that there's no bar there for Hyde Park. I saw that there were no 8th grade students on their public release that showed that they sat for the 8th grade Regents exam.
Yeah, and so that was my question. How, do more students that are taking algebra in the 8th grade as on a percentage basis than other districts?
I'd say it's probably roughly the same is my gut. Again, I don't have access to their exact numbers. I could go back to the public release and look at the numbers overall, but I anticipate that it's roughly the same, or somewhere in the same ballpark.
Okay, because that would have an implication then
Right.
on the third bar for each district and whether that was skewing it.
And these do tend to be accelerated students, which is why you can see across the board, you have primarily students at 100% meeting proficiency on the Algebra 1 Regents exam as an 8th grader. And we would see something similar if we were looking at the living environment results for 8th grade as well. Now we'll look at the Regents data. And now I just want to point out that there are some Regents exams that are scored on a 4 level. That remains the science exams, and you're seeing the 4 science exams here. And we're just looking at 23 total and 2024 total results. In this case, passing is considered 65 to 100 scale score. That's not a percentage of correct answers. That's a scale score for a Regents exam. And mastery. So for science exams, 65 to 84 is considered level 3. 85 to 100 is considered level 4. So meeting proficiency would be anywhere between 65 and 100. So we're showing you the breakdown on both of those. So for living environment, for 2024, 74% of the students met proficiency, 28% of the students sitting for it scored at level 4, which is mastery. And we're just giving you some of the statistics there for the science. Now we're going to be looking at the math exams. The math exams are scored on a 5-level system. And the ELA, yes. Sorry about that. ELA and the math assessments, Regents exams, are scored on 5 levels, with levels 3, 4, and 5 considered proficient on those Regents exams. And therefore, we broke it down here with percentage and number of students that fell into each of those categories, levels 3, 4, and 5. And what we generally want to see is we want to see the overall number of 4 and 5 increasing with a slight decrease in 3. We're happy with proficiency, levels 3, 4, and 5, certainly. But again, there's more detail behind this. This is not just, okay, we've had, 62% of our students score at level 5. There's still more data behind that at the item level, and the Regents exams are all released, so we can look at all the items on the Regents exams.
Right. What the one line that was left off of this data, which I calculated, was the percent that didn't reach level 3, 4, or 5, which those are the ones that didn't pass the Regents. And it's easy to calculate the percentages and look and see what it is. It's hard to know whether that's meaningful or not. Do we know on a state level or other districts what our typical passing rates for some of these Regents exams are?
Well, the passing rates, if we look at levels 3, 4, and 5, they're going to be considered passing rate.
No,
but
I
I would
know
have to look at the other. I can look at the other districts and the state to get that information, but I didn't get it for this presentation. But I can get that because it is publicly released.
Yeah, that would be helpful information because I looked at because you gave us 2 years here and I looked at our passing rate or the percentage that failed across these, and there was one category where it went up. There were 2 where it went down significantly, which seemed like ELA Common Core. We went from 86% passing to 92% passing, which was good. And
we should also point out that last year the English exam, the majority of the students sat in January rather than June.
Oh, okay, interesting. I saw in global history our passing rate went from 80% to 87%, which seemed a nice improvement.
And some of the history exams also changed as well to the new framework and also moved to a 5-level scoring from a 4-level scoring like the science.
Algebra 2 Common Core went from 80% passing to 90% passing. So there was one.
I think living environment was one that.
Living.
Was there another factor that came into play with that?
Mr. Roddy would like to, we have discussed this at length.
There's certainly a multitude of factors. You look at the individual students and this student might have absenteeism, but overall, a few factors is we've seen the largest number of language learners we've ever seen. And because of New York State's graduation requirements, if the student comes in and they're 14 or 15, they go into 9th grade, which is the requirement. Or if they're 16, 17, they've got a gap in their formal education. They typically also might have that first year science. When you look at the list of students, that's whole correlation with those names. So that's a big piece of it. That's the biggest, but we look granularly to individual students. Certainly there's some students that are still dealing with the after effects of COVID. One change that we made this year based on the data is we that our students had. So that went from being a block and a camp over a 6-day cycle to every other day they're getting a lab.
Right.
But I think the biggest driver of those
Right.
we responded to that instruction.
Okay.
And I think we have one more slide on the Regents exams. These are the global history and the U.S. history. Now, the U.S. history was not administered in 22, and it came back in 23, and obviously in 24. And now we'll look at those similar results over a 5-year period, 6-year period I have here. But just to note that assessments were not administered due to COVID in 1920 and 2021. So that's why we have that gap there from at the bottom, and you'll see on the chart 2018-19 to 21-22. And again, this is the highest level, and when we see a dip, we want to get further into the data to determine was the test more difficult, as Kyle pointed out, who are the students that are not meeting proficiency, what are the factors that may contribute to that, are there trends over time, and so again, there's more data behind this highest level percentage number of students meeting proficiency, and I don't want to portray this as we stop here if we see that the line keeps going up. We don't stop there. We continue to drill down and look further and further at the data.
And both of these are 2 of the 5 required. Both Earth Science and Bio, are they?
A science exam.
One of them is required. Okay.
Right. It could be living environment, Earth Science, Physics, or Chemistry.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on the next screen, this is our chemistry and physics. And again, we're going to see a dip there, but where we're seeing the dip is right after the 2 years where it was not administered and there was either remote instruction or a combination or a hybrid instruction model, but we're seeing it climb back up, and that's what we want to see.
Before we get to questions, I would like to say that Lisa is a tremendous resource to our administrators, to our teachers. She provides multiple levels of data that really drills down and with a tiered effect of questions, what happened, what standards were tested. And I think when you look over time how we do very well with our students. But as I said during Future Focused, this is a reflective practice. This is not a stagnant, oh, this is the way it is, we're happy with it. Honestly, we're always looking to grow because we firmly believe if we're not moving, we're falling behind. We're not moving forward, we're falling behind. So one of the things that we do not report out on, but is used internally, is certainly our universal screener, which is the NWEA reading and math, and we do it across grade levels, and it is used internally per student, per class, across grade levels to make sure that we are hitting the key points. That would be in reading, math, skill sets. We use that information across the board and at every grade level. So, and it does, per student and per grade level, it does measure growth in math and reading. So, but that is not something that we report out to the public.
Okay.
Questions? Okay.
We have some educators on the board. Maybe they have some good insight or questions.
Quick question.
I asked my questions on the spot. So
Okay.
I think it was great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, I do have a quick question. Do we know what information is still embargoed?
Yes.
Graduation rate.
Okay. Has not been released yet for 2024.
Okay.
And then there's some other, I think, staff data and student data. But at that SED website, again, at data.nysed.gov, all prior years are archived, so we can look at that. So it gives us a good indicator as what is yet to be released. And it's released at different points during the school year. Some of it not until the spring, but when the graduation information comes out, it'll be both by the annual graduation rate and by cohort as well.
But we can figure it out internally, we just can't
Yes.
talk about it publicly. So we
Correct.
know what our graduation rate is, yeah.
Okay.
So you'd mentioned that some of this data is used to inform planning professional development for teachers and meeting certain standards. I'm wondering what that looks like throughout the year in terms of, are teachers working with this data specific to their class, or is it more department heads planning for their professional development? How often are they working on this, or is it something that's kind of, there, but they have their own goals throughout the year?
It's a systematic approach to looking at data. Lisa does give each classroom teacher not only the data from the year prior for their students that they had the year before, but she also gives them the data with the students that are sitting in front of them. So that can be drilled down if there's gaps in their learning, some standard they did not get. But again, standards that are tested are not the same every year. So it has to be a broad brush of really understanding if I have 25 kids in front of me, 20 kids in front of me, if 4 of them didn't understand character traits that came through the ELA, that would certainly be something that during the year I'd make sure that they learned. So it is done in a systematic approach. I'm very lucky to have great administrators that work with their teachers, their grade level leaders, their department chairs, certainly our liaisons and our coordinators, but they always want to be moving forward and making sure that what we offer here at Red Hook is the best possible educational program that we can provide. So, and they deeply understand the data.
I'm not going to speak for Christine Griffin, but I know that I've talked to this about her. They give the exam in January, say for ELA. Her whole department sits there and looks through it and says, what strands am I seeing the entire grade level needs? What classes need this? What students need this? So that they now have a plan for the rest of the year to look at, do they need to change the entire scope and sequence for the entire grade? Is it a shift in that dramatic? And I think, I'm saying this as an example, but this is just how a lot of the other areas are looking at. Is it a shift just for the whole entire scope and sequence for the rest of the year because everybody missed out on this standard? Or is it just certain classrooms or certain students that need to focus on? So that just helps to inform their instruction. And at the end of the year, they're going to do the same thing, even though they have different groups of students coming in. What are the big gaps that we're seeing the entire grade level miss? That means there's a gap in our curriculum. There's something that we didn't teach, or we need to go back and emphasize it more, add a couple weeks. So it's going to depend on what class is sitting in front of you. So it's a fluid process, I'd say.
Yes, and that could indicate a need for a curriculum project during the summer.
Dr. Roddy wants to clarify what I said.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. One thing I've, you know, when I first joined the board, I was very much, gee, we need data, we need data. You know, the longer I'm on the board, I realize, you know, how much information you guys process that is not quantifiable, and how much of that, you know, is kind of on the ground in the classroom that you incorporate. So it's good to get the data, it's good to see the data, but I know it's a small part of the overall decision process.
And it's the 35,000-foot view of the data, which is what we're able to share. And I just want to clarify 2 points also, that the information that we share out with the teachers, we share that out with the building administrators first so they can digest that before the conversations are had at the building level and the data are utilized. And then also, I also want to point out that when we're looking at the information that the state education, and I'm glad that you talked about the analysis that Christine Griffin and the English department are doing on the ELA assessments and other assessments in the building, because the percentages that SED gives represents the highest score a student achieved during the school year. So if a student sat for that assessment in August, and then sat again in January, and then sat again in June, that percentage of meeting proficiency is going to reflect the highest score that the student got of those 3 administrations. So doing that analysis of each individual administration is important, because that student may be missing certain things in the June administration that weren't tested in January, or perhaps did better on in January.
Right. Okay. Any more questions?
No, but I just think about this like as a practice, and anybody that works on I don't know, state standards don't laugh, but there's no guide that comes back with standard deviation for whether it was a Monday or a Friday, you ate breakfast or not. So you look at all this data, but there's also circumstantial things that play a part in who takes the test. And you do have to have some standard, and so that's why we look at it, but that's where I leave it. I think, like you mentioned before, the previous you know, presentation, kind of what Mr. Roddy already said, I'm in alignment on that with this data. It is important.
But this is just a couple of days.
Yes,
This is
exactly.
not the whole wealth of experience that they've had during their educational program here.
Well, and it's going to change too, right? Because the graduation requirements are changing from just a region exam. There's other options. So maybe some of this will start to reflect that too. Things are slow. You don't know.
One thing was helpful for me in listening to you talk through the data is not so much the data itself, but how you process the data. And as you talked about drilling down and looking at different questions and, you know, did one class do better than another, and how you incorporate that into professional development. That was really helpful to understand how you're actually managing and monitoring and adjusting things for performance. So that was insightful.
And like I said, sometimes it's just a matter of, what language or terminology may be used in one classroom versus another to concept. Neither one of them are wrong, but one may pop up on that assessment and the other may not.
Right, okay.
It's a real routine cycle.
Right. Well, you've been doing this longer. Right. All right. Yes. All right. Good.
Yep, we have a new class that we want to propose too. Okay. And this is called the Breakfast Club, not to be confused by the movie.
This is not detention.
I don't know if you don't know that.
So it was inspired by the movie. Mr. Roddy and I talked a little bit about it. I'm seeing kids, who really to start off the morning with baking one, and we're making, cookies or something. I'm really seeing a need for kids to understand how important breakfast is to start the day. In this class, I'd propose to do all sorts of different breakfast items like pancakes, eggs, breads, a variety of different things. And then I'd love to go on to talk about the different cultures around the world and how they eat breakfast. Because it's very different than we eat breakfast in the United States, right? You go to Italy, and you're certainly not eating pancakes with syrup and whipped cream and chocolate chips in it. You're eating, you're having a little coffee and you're having maybe some meat and cheese or a little fresh croissant. So that was kind of my idea. I thought it would be a fun class to do first period in the morning, kind of inspire some kids, talk about healthy eating, talk about different ways that eating breakfast can affect your health, how it can be good for you to start your morning off with, good food, and so that you're not starving, although we do eat lunch at 10:30 in the morning at the high school. So it was just kind of a fun class. I thought it would work well for a lot of kids because not many kids eat breakfast before they leave the house in the morning. I'm not sure that's a revelation for anyone, but I think it would be fun to start the day off with something like that. What else? Plan and budget meals, right? We talk about that in all of my classes about how food is expensive, how the prices have gone up, how eggs, right? There's 101 different ways to cook an egg. And I do a unit on eggs in my baking 2 class, and we talk about the fact that, hopefully you're not going to live in your parents' basement forever, and someday you're going to go off and have to plan and budget your own meals. And eggs are a great way to learn how to do that. There's so many different things you can do with them. They're a great source of protein. They're almost a complete food with the exception of vitamin C. And it's a great way to start to learn how to cook things. In all of my classes, we work in teams. They work in different groups in different kitchens that they usually pick themselves. Occasionally I pick for them, but most of the time they pick themselves. So they're working, they're working together to figure out how to make something. Teamwork, it's kind of cooperation at its best, because if somebody fails at what they're supposed to do or they don't put the right amount of something in, oftentimes the recipe doesn't work, which is disappointing for them. And of course we talk about fitness, some of the trendy things in food and food science, seed oils and plastics and all those things that kids are tending to be more interested in than they were before. And what things you want to stay away from in some of your food. I just read this article that seed oil stays in your system for like 6 months. Who wants that? Nobody. So what you could do to eat healthy. And if anybody remembers back to COVID, I got chickens, and they were Thelma and Louise, and I would film me with the chickens, and my Flex kids helped me name them. And we talked about taking care of them. And I always say, out of all the pets that I have, my chickens are the best because at least they give me something every day. Yeah, and I compost with them. I bring home my food scraps from school and give it to the chickens. So I always say to Rob, I'm like, oh, were the chickens happy with like the peppers? He's like, well, they didn't really say anything, but they looked happy when I came outside. So that's my idea for a new course. I think it will be fun. Yeah. Any questions? Thelma and Louise actually got eaten by a fox, if that was a question, Austin. I know, they did. They died a sad death. But I no longer have free-range chickens because of that. Lessons to be learned. Anything else?
Yes. Questions? No, it sounds interesting.
Oh, thank you. Thank
So is this in the course catalog, or when do you need that? Okay, so we need to have it approved tonight? Because I don't think we put it on as a, is it on as an item? Oh, it is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we need to vote to approve this?
No, I think it's later on in the meeting.
Oh, it's in the consent agenda? Okay.
Consent agenda number
All right.
5.
No pressure here. I'm feeling pressure all of a sudden. I feel like I should have brought something
We're
to show you how great
we're
this was
voting,
today.
we'll vote on it on a batch basis.
So the teacher in me, hey.
Hey, Austin.
The teacher in me is wondering, maybe this is a good built-in opportunity to offer faculty breakfast like once a month?
Yeah, I see that. Well, we did talk a little bit about when we were talking about the class, like a cafe. I was telling some of my classes about it, asking for their ideas, and they were like, oh, could we do some sort of cafe? Before school sometimes can be tough, and because we do have the gift of free breakfast at the high school, I wouldn't want to interfere with that at all, but we could certainly figure out some sort of bake sale, something. Because when I was class advisor, we used to do waffle sales, Waffle Wednesdays, and those were the biggest hit. The classes made the most money ever out of making waffles. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome.
All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to recognition of visitors. If we have anybody in the audience that would like to address the board, now is the time. Just a few ground rules. You have 3 minutes with about 15 seconds left. I'll give you like a little subtle, polite wave. And if you can just state your name so our clerk can put that in the record. And then lastly, just as a procedure, we don't reference students or teachers, specific issues or names there. So.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Nora Painton. I'll be briefer than 3 minutes, I hope. I am the director of Bard Nursery School and also the administrator of the Oak After School program, which is a program for K through 5th. We serve 48 families at the school, and they currently take the bus from the school to Montgomery Place. I'm just here to introduce myself tonight. I wanted you to all be able to put a face to the name. I know some of you might have gotten emails about the program today. I just want to open lines of communication and most importantly, thank the school for supporting this effort. It's been a really popular program over the past 4 years, and we really hope to see it continue successfully. So thank you for having me at this meeting, and yeah, I look forward to working with you to make it successful in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And do we have anybody else? Nope. All right. Well, that'll we'll move. We'll.
Presentation, by the way, too.
Wow, I'm excited.
Really good.
I'm excited. All right. Yep, you're up.
So
Go.
I think everybody got our board reports, the building board reports, just to highlight a couple things. Mill Road I think I sent everybody some pictures. We had a great football game with our pre-K through 5. They did not go against each other, the pre-K and 5. I do think that Mrs. Strothman did take the game very seriously this year. But it was great to have a parade and a game, and the whole school was involved, so it was wonderful to see that. The trail is being used by all the students, the pathway in the back that maybe most of you saw during the wellness time. We had a great Shakespeare play at the high school. PAC on Friday, December 6th. The students did a great job. So I think you saw the picture of lambs able to spell. I think I texted you that picture too. Stacy's still reeling from that event, but it was, maybe I shouldn't show everybody, but that's going to be on the cover of the yearbook, and it's a great event. And you can see many things that Ms. Smith is doing in the school to build school culture. There are 2 awards that were in her board report that I'm going to ask. We have that student and the teacher come to the meeting. We have a student who won a New York State Council on Leadership and Student Activities, Isaac Shapiro. Won, and we'll have him come to the January meeting. And then Lauren Cirillo continued the tradition of getting the Middle Level Advisory of the Year. They call it the Kim Goldhirsch after one of our retired teachers, so she was awarded that this year as well. I think some of you saw Mrs. Striever on television. Did anybody get to see that? It was hours of footage, and I think it was 2 minutes. So we learned a little bit about media. We also had, as Dr. Summers said before, Dr. Fran Willis, the New York State Regents, came to also honor Martha. She came on December 3rd, and she awarded her with her certificate and read that to her and then stayed in her class. So it was a very nice gesture from the State Education Department. I believe that Representative Pat Ryan just put, I don't want to use this word because I don't know if it's exactly right, tweeted. I don't know if it was on X, but he mentioned Martha Striever on his social media today. So those of you that
she's been politicized.
She has made that social media platform too, which is interesting to say. So they also have a winter concert next week on the 17th at Lambs if people are available to attend that. Mr. Roddy and his group has started the master schedule. As you know, that's a constant process. I think they did a great job this year, always looking to improve. We continue to improve the aesthetics throughout the high school. They're also working on the area right outside the principal's office and the assistant principal's office, so that's looking good. Mr. Roddy also recently submitted a application to earn a designation as a green ribbon school. So we are going to hopefully hear back in the end of spring because only 2 or 3 schools in the entire state are actually designated with that. So it's great to see. There was a great winter concert that also took place for the high school. And just a few things really quick in technology just as a follow-up. After the last incident we had at the high school with the lockdown, we talked about students being able to opt in with the parent permission. So that's underway right now where the students are able to download the Student Square app to also receive notifications. So we'll be able to do that for general announcements for students and obviously our emergency notifications. We're also starting, and I think Dr. Summers put this up there, Securely, which is basically, it's a means for faculty to view the screens of the students during course time. So if the teacher is teaching, they will also be able to see on their computer the screens of each of the students to watch, obviously, to make sure that they're on the screen they're supposed to be on, but also in real time be able to see student work. So that's something that we're working on. And they're also generating printable student ID badges to provide as well for our students. And LAMS is also piloting a digital hall pass system so that students, when they're in the halls, will just have a record of where they are, which will also help with just accountability, but also in emergencies as well. So that's another thing our tech department has put into place. So I just want to highlight a couple of those notes. Does anybody have any questions on the board reports?
I did. Did the Community Square app also
Yes,
open?
it's there.
That one's running?
So if you could spread the word, or anybody could spread the word, you can go on the district site, and there, I believe there's a QR code, but there also might just be a way to just sign in. Is it just a QR code?
It's
Okay.
also on the district Facebook page also. You
Okay.
can just click the link.
So everybody would just have to opt in. So the more that we can spread that, so even if you don't have a child in your school, you can now get similar general announcements and district newsletters, which is great. Any other questions? So I'm going to have Matt Funigello come up. Matt, as you know, is a district intern, and he has been working diligently on a community book read project. So we just wanted to highlight where we are with that and next steps. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt. Doesn't sound like it.
Now it's on? There we go. Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Funicello, high school vocal music teacher, K-12 department coordinator for music, and administrative intern working with Dr. Warden. And I have the pleasure to be working on this really exciting project right now, which has been really transformative for me, and I know it will be transformative for our community, so I'll give you a little bit of insight. I'll give you the brief version of this tonight. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more information about it in the months ahead. So Red Hook Reads is a community read project that we are launching this year, and the mission is to strengthen the Red Hook community through purposeful exploration, thoughtful conversations, and meaningful connections, inspired by books that spark curiosity, provoke thought, and encourage empathy. So some key features of this community read here in Red Hook that we're putting together is it's something that's being introduced to the community through Red Hook Central Schools. It's a coordination between staff, faculty, and administration. Along with us, we have some community partners that have joined us. The Red Hook Education Foundation has given us a $3,000 grant to buy books that we are currently distributing to the community. It's been very exciting to have I've never seen 210 copies of a book in one place at one time. They're all in my office. But as time goes by, the piles are dwindling, and that's exciting because it means that they're getting in the hands of our community members, both English editions and Spanish editions. Also joining with us is the Red Hook Public Library and the Tivoli Free Libraries, who will be hosting our focused community study groups. We launched launched the initiative within the district back in October. It went public just the other day. We released a Parent Square message where people can sign up for more information. And we will be working hard on discovering meaning and connecting with our neighbors all the way through May, which will result in a culminating event. This is a collective community experience centered on a relevant text. It's a cause for us to connect with one another for discussion. Discussing problems facing our community and agreeing on solutions. Discourse is really important for how we connect with one another. We live in a world right now that is increasingly disconnected, and this is our effort to enhance our community togetherness. And we're just encouraging collective actioning through that strong connection. We can go to the next slide. Why this book? This book is, at this point, I'm sure many people here have heard about it. It is sort of splashed on the scene, and it's receiving a lot of buzz. Right now, it's been on the bestsellers list for 37 weeks. The author, Jonathan Haidt, has toured around the country, giving book talks and being on panel discussions, podcasts, and so forth. But truly, we're not reading it only because it's on the New York Times bestsellers list, but it's very relevant to what we do here because it relates to the epidemic of mental health issues that we have in this country in terms of adolescence. Since 2010, there's been a 131% increase among girls reporting at least one major depressive episode, and a 161% increase in boys reporting at least one depressive episode a year. So truly, we're in an unprecedented time when it comes to student mental health, and this book seeks to understand more why that is. He focuses on the shift of play-based childhood to phone-based childhood and its effects on the psychological and social development of children. And it truly highlights the rising rates of depression, anxiety, and self-harm among adolescents. Unfortunately now, among the ages 14 to 15 and 15 to 19, suicide is the most common cause of death for that age group, according to the CDC. The book is not just darkness, but it does propose actionable solutions for healthier childhood environments, both at home and in schools. Truly, Jonathan Haidt presents this as a collective action problem that is not going to be solved just by schools, and it's not just going to be solved by the community. It is something that needs to be done in tandem. This book is, of course, timely and relevant for schools, families, and communities. Thank you. Key themes from the book. Play-based childhood is the way that humans have grown up for centuries, and this is what results in what many researchers see as proper psychological development, and that is what the book sort of crusades to sort of restore. However, we have screen-based childhood really becoming the more dominating experience for children. Screens being the ultimate experience blocker. It's important for children to have a multitude of experiences, and being stuck looking at a phone or an iPad or a TV is a primary experience blocker that hinders development. Alongside this, we have a rise of safetyism, So we have a situation now where the children are being overprotected in society, in real life, but not, there's underprotection happening in the digital world, which has some truly disturbing implications for childhood development. He outlines the 4 foundational harms, namely social deprivation. There's a statistic that comes in the book that says that adolescents now spend 75% less time with their peers than they did a few decades ago. In addition to that, sleep deprivation, negative impacts coming from cell phone use, bringing that cell phone with them into their room. Research shows that the cell phone being in the room while children are sleeping impacts the quality of sleep. And we know here in this educational institution that sleep is vital for deep learning. In addition to sleep deprivation, we've got attention fragmentation, impaired focus and learning, and addiction. The Haidt proposes that these devices are designed to be addicting and to capture our attention and to sell our attention to companies that can profit off of that. I'm just as guilty as many other people here of the doom scroll, and it's designed to engage us that way. He investigates some of the gender impacts that these technologies have. And boys and girls, he proposes, are impacted differently according to how they live their digital life. So here are key events. It began in the fall with 4 focused study groups. Well, we just had, we're about to conclude our first of 4 study groups for educators. The first one was at the secondary level. We'll be starting in a few weeks the primary level one, and then we'll be doing a second round of both of those because they were lots of faculty were very excited to participate in them. Just the other day, we had a formal invitation out to the community to join the Community Reads program. There's a form that people can fill out for more information. It released 3 days ago, and we already have over 70 people who are interested in receiving a copy of the book and who are sharing lots of sort of anecdotal stories about sort of what's brought them to want to know more about the issue. This winter and the spring, we'll be distributing those copies of the books to the community. The book studies that are being sponsored by the Tivoli Free and Red Hook Public Libraries will begin. And then we'll have community events that'll fill up our calendar, including film screenings, talks led by different community organizations, and workshops to help everyone sort of tackle some of the issues that are dealt with in the book. The culminating event will take place in May. It will be we're planning a phone-free community meal out in the back of the high school. It's beautiful. What's that?
You have to hand your phone in?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have to figure out what we're going to do. But so it'll be a phone-free community meal, open and free to the public, which will be followed up by a panel discussion with key voices reflecting on the themes of the book and helping us to figure out as a community what we can do better to improve the lives of children. So I'm going around and I'm giving this speech a lot. We encourage people to do what they can to get involved, to pick up a copy of the book, to listen to it on Audible, to just take in a lot of the media coverage for this, and to sort of consider some of the points that are being made in the book, to find reasons to counterpoint some of the things that Haidt is proposing in the book, and to just spread the word and take part in this, because it's the conversations that we have based on our reading that really allow us to sort of see where we are, dream about where we want to go, and figure out how we get from point A to point B. Thank you so much.
Yes, so if the board wants a book, they need to go on the QR code.
Yes, please. And I'll be happy to deliver it.
Yeah. I can't think of a more salient topic for the book read and for our community. And I mean, you know, we've all watched what this has done to some of our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Excellent. That brings us to our committee review. And I'll just go in the order they're here. Policy. Charlie?
So we had a few more Title X updates coming through, and they're on the agenda here for a first read, and then a couple of second reads on this time. In the future, there'll be a lot more. PPS has met with the also Transportation Department and the Facility and Operations teams separately, not all together, but to review policies, and those will be forthcoming to the policy committee. Just right now, kind of going an overview with the people who are actually doing the work before they're brought forward to the committee. So for tonight, just a few things, but more things to come.
Community relations.
Community engagement.
I'm sorry, I was just reading. We have to correct
Does
this
that need
on
to be
the
corrected?
agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, community engagement.
We had a very brilliant suggestion from Janet this evening, who joined our committee meeting. We were talking more about what we could do to host some kind of, board-related event. And she suggested this idea of kind of putting together a few dates over the course of a school year where we invite community members, parents to tour the schools and come together and maybe have a presentation and then provide some input about the schools and what they saw and, what they learned from the presentation to board members who would be present and maybe some administrators and teachers. You had heard about this with it had a certain name to it, but then we kind of came up with a different name that we're not locked in on, and also this is just still an idea. We thought of community input tours. So I think there were, in the example you gave us, there were 3 dates over the course of a school year. Being that we're already in December, I think we could maybe do 2 of those dates where we host a group of people for each date and show them through the schools, invite them into the classrooms, let them see what things look like inside, and then have kind of input meetings afterwards.
Would each date, would we be having tours at each of the 3 buildings, or would each date be a different building?
Yeah, we were talking about that. Go ahead.
No, so that we would probably do each date a different building. Like theoretically, you would do the high school one date, then the middle school, and then the elementary school, coordinating with the administrators from that building.
Right.
And it would most likely be the same group of people. It's not just open tours. We would have a group of community members. We'd like to have a diverse group, different cross-section of people that would come in and get to tour each building.
Oh, and
They would be a community liaison for us as well as for the school buildings and to be able to help us get the word out.
So it's like an intentional invite, or is it open to the
Yes.
public?
No.
Oh,
It's
okay.
an intentional invite.
Okay.
Not even an invite. We would just open it up, like have people have a questionnaire apply, so to speak, where they would fill out a questionnaire with various things, because we do want to get a good cross-section. We don't want everyone to be all elementary parents or everyone to be people that don't have children in the district currently. We want a diverse group.
I get it.
So does that make sense?
Yeah,
then?
that makes sense. Yeah, and by having a a defined group of people, and then having them visit each of the buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, just to see what we do, like when we go to the different buildings and do the tours, sometimes we're, impressed. We're like, oh, wow, we didn't realize this. But to actually do it while we have students in the buildings, that would be the difference with a tour like this. And all of you would do a day, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to emphasize this. The point is to see students in action in our schools, not necessarily just to tour the facilities,
right.
But to be able to walk through, see what's going on, showcase some of the programs that we have, and then maybe conclude that meeting or that tour with a discussion to get feedback from those participants. So, it's a way for people that are wanting to be in the buildings and see what's going on to have that experience, but also a way for us to get feedback directly from them.
I like it.
And then at the end, we could have a director, whether it's transportation or something like that, could speak and, just to find out more about what we have going on.
Yeah, we had a conversation last week too, when Russ and I met with administration, and we were talking about, some other ways that we can meet our community members. And we talked about looking at our calendar of events and seeing if we can get more board participation at some of those events. As far as it's music events or sporting events, or, just a wide variety of, board presence, I think would be really great.
Yeah.
Kind of extending ourselves and talking to different groups of people.
that came up in our discussion in our committee meeting as well, and we were thinking like if we could organize a Google Doc with a calendar month, writing the dates. Obviously, we'd have to work with our school leaders to figure out what's going on, and maybe principals could help input events. And it's not like a board member has to be at every single athletic event, but to definitely prioritize the major events and then just see, oh, there's no one going to this. I'll sign up here. Or I'm already planning to go to this. I'll put my name down here. So we agree.
We could set that up. Would you like to be a monthly, or do you want us to try to do major events for the? You can't think past this month. Okay.
Maybe it could be. Maybe there's a way to do like a Google sheet with month, and each tab is a different month. I don't know.
We can also look at the calendars and do it that
think
way
if
to
there,
not add work
just for the
you.
board, if there was like a shared doc, a Google Doc that listed them, and I mean, you can just it can grow
We'll
over
just
time.
pick
but-
like the major thing.
Yeah, and it's not like everyone has to sign up for what they're going to go to, but every once in a while I hear about something that happened at the, here at Mill Road that I didn't know about because my kids are long out of Mill Road. But, yeah.
We also discussed a potential name tag situation or lanyard to, if we're attending, to make it known that a board member is present, and we may be open to engaging with the community on whatever is going on. I don't know.
We do not have those.
Yes, because that's what I asked you this morning, or this afternoon. How did you do that?
You guys don't have pictures?
We don't have, no.
Oh, we can.
She's never given it up since stepping down. Just kidding you.
Yeah, we need to take that back right
All right. Sounds like some great ideas, but the bill, yeah, the
tours.
I'm not sure what you called the first thing, but
Community input tour.
Community input tour. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah. All right. Lastly, facilities. Aaron or Kate.
Do it. Okay, I'll start and then you can chime in. There were lots of things to discuss. The first thing that we talked about was the impact of the village sewer. So we did have Mayor Smythe here with her engineer, and the next steps that we have to take would be to locate where our tanks are and where the lines would possibly run, because that would impact our next steps as far as repairing some of the fields. So we really need to get that information first.
Yeah. I vocalized concern over timing. They were not too buttoned up in terms of their timing. They have hopes and dreams that they'll get grants approved within a year. And then I emphasize to them that we have, a commitment to our community to execute on what we voted on. So by the end of January, our expectation is they will give us those schematics. So we will see if and how the sewage system would impact. I mean, it's a great optionality for us. It's an improved septic system that would go to a shared water treatment facility, so clean and all that good stuff. But again, we're looking at our property and trying to figure out, which of these fields to fix, and we certainly can't invest time and energy and SED approval if anything has to be ripped up. So it's a little bit of an if-then. So I kind of encourage them to tighten up their recommendations and timelines for us. And then the second part, we did spend a good amount of time talking about Prop 1, which is obviously interior as well as the columns. Erin and Tom met with architects, engineers, everybody over the gymnasium. They had, there's not a tremendous impact in terms of moving things, so it's a pretty easier job. It's a lot of cosmetic with as we know, with the floor and the paint and bumping out the back panel wall that butts up against the old performing arts area, and then obviously the new bleachers. So we're going to move forward as quickly as we can. We did approve to bring in what is it? It's not a third party reviewer, which will accelerate the process by several weeks with the hope that we could potentially get in there this summer and start that work. That is the hope. And then the third discussion, which we did not get enough time on, and we will come back to it, is Field 1, reviewing our options there. And there are several, looking at just immediate repair using funds available through the district. What would that look like? How much would that cost for, resodding, elevating the ditch on Field 1 and potentially resurfacing the track? And then what is our threshold that would then turn it into a capital project? And then we've talked about, do we do another extensive natural field with light? There's different iterations, but we did not draw any conclusions. We need a little bit more data on costs for repair. If we move forward with that avenue, how long would those repairs last? Cost per wear? So we've got a lot more to work on. So we tackled a lot in an hour.
Yeah.
But we're going to tackle more and bring back. Does anybody have any questions? Great.
We did talk about, the repair happening quick.
Yeah.
So if we did take that route, it's a project we could potentially start fairly soon.
Tom, there are, as you guys know, and it's no secret, there are significant safety issues with the shape of the current field. He's actually looking to not play any spring sports. So we're looking to outsource lacrosse to other fields. He did bring in our insurance company.
Yeah, and I think our suggestion is we need the data and the cost estimates.
Right.
But the hope is, if possible, to be able to, fix the drainage and the sod and on Field 1 and do that out of our own budget, so it's not a capital project.
Mm-hmm.
That way we don't have to file with the state and take a year for the state to review, and we can get Field 1 in a good, safe, usable condition very quickly, which would be during the spring and summer.
Yep.
That's the hope, pending some feedback on cost and estimates on what that would require.
Right. Well said.
Any other questions? All right. That brings us to BOE member comments, if we haven't all commented enough. It's 9:23. Seriously though, no. We get together once a month. It'll be starting twice a month soon. But does anybody have any topics they'd like to raise? No. All right. That brings us to policy review and approval. I need a motion.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a couple second reads and 2 first reads and an abolished policies. Any questions, comments on any of these? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That brings us to consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions on any of these? We are approving here the Breakfast Club, of course. No comments or questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And personnel agenda. First, we need to amend this. We need to remove item 15. Appoint teachers, Adar Davis. If I can have a motion and a second, we need to vote to remove this from the agenda. So a motion?
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor of removing item 15?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, item 15 is removed. Now I need a motion. We are going to vote on items 1 through what is listed as items 1 through 14, and then 16 and 17. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Questions, comments on any of these? All in favor?
Kitty.
Oh. we'll vote, and then you can, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? All right.
Okay, I would like to take a moment to welcome aboard Evan.
I can't believe he's
Evan
there.
Austrich. He comes to us with 11 years of experience in both special ed and general education, and his references praise his skill, his collegiate attitude, and his professionalism. He is well liked by students, parents, and staff. He has high expectations, and his calm demeanor allows him to work with all types of students and adults, even those quite challenging. So we are very happy to welcome him aboard, and he will be working on grade 5, special education. So welcome, Evan. Welcome.
This is Red Hook initiation. You have to sit through a very long
In
school
addition to
board
what
meeting.
Dr. Summers said, you clearly have patience as well. So, yeah. Dr. Warden has.
I just want to congratulate and give best wishes to Jennifer Griffin. I know she's worked as an aide for 21 years in the school district, and people describe her as somebody who brings joy and care and to the students and the entire staff. So we appreciate her dedication to the district for over 20 years. So we wish her well in the future.
And that brings us to our second recognition of visitors. Do we have anybody going? Gone. All right. Fine. They've gotten me for worse. That brings us to adjournment. Do I have a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.